With so many options, why choose Arizona State University?
For me, the only online option was ASU because of the quality. Their faculty was really involved with their students and care about your personal journey. The dedication to my personal development from my professors, that's been extremely valuable to me.
Earn your degree from the nation's most innovative university. Online. That's a degree better. Explore more than 300 undergraduate, graduate, and certificate programs at asuonline.asu.edu.
This is Wheelbearings. I'm Dan Roth.
And I'm Sam Abu-Al-Samad.
And I'm Rebecca Linland from Rebecca Drives.
And Rebecca's the only one who remembered to tell. That's okay.
And I'm from Navigant Research.
Yeah, and I'm from everywhere.
I have all the rules.
We're all made of stars. So let's jump right in.
It's full of stars.
Right. This is an all-star podcast. Let's jump right into what we're driving. So, Rebecca, last week you talked about, I think we caught up almost entirely on your garage, but we left out one. Well, it was the Audi Q3.
Yes. So that was actually a media launch that I went on. I haven't had it in my garage yet. But this was a program that they did in Nashville, not to be confused with the Nissan Versa program that Sam and I did in Nashville.
At the same hotel.
At the same hotel.
Was it at the same time?
No, it was Audi was the week before. So I think I got home on Friday from Nashville and went back on Monday. And I would have stayed the weekend had I not had family responsibilities because, of course, it's Nashville, which is really great. So
they have that cool Knox transmitter tower, one of the very few left. It's shaped like a diamond. Anyway, carry on.
I believe you.
Yeah.
They have a lot of cool things.
People just smile and nod when I say stuff.
Because they have no idea what you're talking about when you talk about stuff like that.
It's a very cool broadcast tower, and I'll leave it at that. I'll share a link in Slack if you really are morbidly interested. But I didn't realize it was a media launch, but I mean, we're launched, right? So let's just launch right into it. How is the Q3?
So I really, really liked this vehicle. And people that know me know that I do have a penchant for liking German vehicles. I've owned a lot of German vehicles. I just like the way that they drive. I haven't always been a biggest Audi fan, but they are definitely growing on me. And this Q3, not only is the styling, so this is the new 2019, the styling is so great on it. It's got these nice big chunky wheels. It has this fun, expressive front, but it has a refinement to it that so many cars miss out when they go for this expressive design. And I feel like Audi did that once over, that one more time. Let's pull back just a little bit and add that elegance to it. And I think that that's what they did. I love the size of this car. In my mind, one of the most underserved populations is smaller households, single women, single guys, people without children. So much marketing is directed towards families. And this is not necessarily a family car. You can definitely fit a kid in it. You can fit 4 people very comfortably. You can fit 5 very good friends. The third row, the second row is a little squeezed in there. But what I loved about it is that as I was driving it around, I felt comfortable having one other person in it or not having anybody. But if I was in it just by myself, I wouldn't feel superfluous. I wouldn't feel like I'm driving this big, huge thing around. And why do I have all these extra seats? So it has a really small, nimble feel and look to it. And it was just a lot of fun. I was on sort of a lifestyle influencer wave of the drive. So there were some traditional journalists on, but there were also non-traditional. And so we did things like going to different shops. And so they took us to this one store called Able that specializes in fair wage fashion. And so they make a very concentrated effort to make sure that the people that manufacture their goods in different parts of the world are well paid and paid appropriately. And so we went there. We went to another place and we made donuts, which was awesome. Five Daughters Bakery.
You gotta flip them, right?
The donuts itself were made, and then we got to decorate them, like in the way that the donuts were supposed to be decorated in the shop. It was called Five Daughters.
Cheating. I mean, that's cool, but it's cheating. Got to make the donut. Anyway.
Time to make the donuts. These were like those. They were sort of like a croissant-y donut, so it had what I was told.
But you're not allowed to call them that other name because that's copyrighted or trademarked.
Exactly. Right. So,
so these aren't just yeast donuts.
No.
These are like, okay.
They had
pastry donuts.
I was told that they had 144 layers of like flakiness all stuffed in there. They're the kind of donut that you can't eat in one sitting. Like even my nephew Jake could not eat the ones that I brought home. You have to cut them in half and you have to dole them out because they're so rich, but they were fabulous. So we went to some of these different places and, driving in Nashville, driving on the highway, it didn't really matter. The car was just really, really fun. The typical tight German steering and suspension, a really quiet interior. They did this fabulous. The dashboard has in what's called the orange interior package has Alcantara suede on the dashboard. I have no idea how long this will last, but it looks great coming off the lot.
As long as no one touches it, it'll be fine.
Exactly.
Alcantara is a synthetic, though, so it should hold up pretty well.
I think it will. So the ones that the vehicle starts at 34,700, and then it obviously it climbs up from there. I have to think about how much I'll look how much it tops out.
Definitely doesn't have Alcantara for 34,700.
The S line is 42,900.
I'm sorry.
The S line model is 40. The Quattro S line is 42,900.
Yeah, so that starts at 36.
That's the Prestige. Sorry.
Right.
None of these prices seem outrageous when you consider that this is going to compete directly with the X1 and the X2.
Right? No, right, and exactly.
Those get a lot more expensive.
They get a lot more expensive very, very quickly. So I thought that they did a lot of really nice things with this vehicle. Again, it looks really, really sharp. It has Quattro all-wheel drive to it. Yeah, so the Prestige is around 43, but there's not a lot you can add to that then. It's really well stocked. So I just thought they did a really, really nice job with this. I'm looking forward to seeing what they do with the marketing and the advertising of this. And this, I have to say, this is definitely one of those vehicles that I could definitely consider taking home with me.
How would you compare it against your Encore?
Oh, well, it's bigger, first of all, for sure. It's definitely peppier, more powerful. I think that the Encore is a little bit it has such a nice interior. Like it's sort of an anomaly in some ways. But
it's a GM car with a good interior.
I know, right? I mean, the Audi is clearly luxury. Unquestionably luxurious. We tried out the adaptive cruise control, which worked really well. I like the virtual cockpit in Audi. I think it's really cool to have the 3D. So it obviously has Apple CarPlay and Android Auto and all that good stuff. And so I'm a big fan. I really enjoyed it a lot.
One of the things that Audi has managed to do, just sort of looking at the new, the pictures of the new model, is it still looks like a Q3. It looks like the car we already know.
Right.
But it's crisper. It's sharper. So they've evolved it without adding too many extra lines and nonsense to the design, which everybody seems to be doing. There's just a lot of nonsense styling lines that don't go anywhere.
Exactly. and that's what I was saying about there's a restraint and an elegance to it that is enviable and that I feel like more people need to do. because I think that they did a really, really nice job with that. And that's the thing is that, even when we were talking about the Corvette a little bit, that idea, it just is a little too over the top in some cases. I think that Audi continues to display that balance between expressiveness, distinction on the road. There's nothing that looks quite like an Audi. They still have that unmistakable look to them. But they've also modernized it. This is wider and taller and longer than the previous edition. So they continue to move the needle, but they do it in such a way that it's still staying true to the brand.
I like to. I'm looking right now at the orange interior package.
I love that.
But I like that they don't have that tacked on screen that everybody has.
Yes.
The screen is integrated into the instrument panel better.
Yep. Yes.
And I know, Sam, it's more of a look away from the road, but it just looks better.
It does. It does. So the one that I drove was about 45,000, which again, I don't think that's outrageous for what you're getting. That's the S-Line Quattro. I think that's, and it looks great. I loved it. I thought it was fantastic.
I'm having a harder and harder time justifying in my mind the prices of new vehicles.
Yeah, but this is a luxury. I mean, this is going to, and the interior is so sharp, and this is a luxury vehicle.
It's going to be leased and then sold as CPO.
Yeah. No, you're right. It almost certain, the majority of them will be leased instead of bought, and then sold off as CPOs. But yeah, no, I mean, I'm sure it's lovely. I mean, it certainly looks good.
I do. Now that I do remember some of the auto journalists tweeting about the lifestyle folks that were also on this launch, and it was rather hilarious. There was some confusing wardrobe, not misunderstandings. It's just like some of the auto guys were not all that sophisticated when it comes to haberdashery. And so there was quite a lot of sort of like, there's influencers on this wave, and
there are those that are stylish, and then there are auto journalists.
Right. Let's describe what they're wearing, and it's just like, all right. It's awfully flashy to be okay.
Although to be fair, there are some very well dressed auto journalists.
There are. I mean, David E. Davis always was well put together. But I aspire to be one of those auto journalists who just looks like I could be the help, the janitor.
Well, so Sam and I are going to get into this a little bit, and so maybe I'll wait. But after I got home, Audi sent me a package with some gifts in it from the different retail locations that we went to, and one of the notes in it from the Audi team was that this car, the Q3, is really designed to fuel your hustle. Which
fuel your hustle?
Okay, but listen.
Cool story, bro.
But I thought it was it's a clever tagline. I think it's appropriate. I like it because the Nissan Versa, which we are going to talk to in a minute. Should I say it or not, Sam?
Save it.
Okay. So Audi, I don't know how far Audi's going to take the fuel your hustle
please,
line.
Dear
but
God.
I'll just leave that there. I'm going to leave that hanging right there.
That offends my copywriting sensibilities.
Oh,
it's just like that sounds like they got a bunch of people around a table and didn't let them out until they had the lowest common denominator.
Well,
they didn't get quite to the lowest common denominator.
Yes, they didn't quite get there because
we'll come to that one.
Exactly.
Okay. All right. Well, in the meantime, so we talked about the Q3, and now we can talk about what's in our garages. Sam, you were driving the large and in charge Ram 1500 Laramie, which is quite a luxurious vehicle that also costs quite a bit of money. But it's I love that truck. It's so nice. I would move in. It's big enough, and it's
Pretty
way
much
nicer. Yeah, it's got better carpet than my living room. I like it quite a bit.
Yeah, no, I've got the 2019 Ram 1500 Laramie, as you said, crew cab with the 5.7 liter Hemi with e-torque, and I would say without a doubt, the Ram 1500 is the best overall light duty full size pickup truck on the market today. I mean, there is, I don't think there's anything as good as this one. There may be others that, may beat it by some amount in towing capability or payload. But overall, as a truck to live with, the Ram is it's fantastic. And, what you were saying, Rebecca, about, or maybe it was Dan, about the lines on the Q3, and kind of holding back and not over styling it. I think this is, as big trucks go, this is one of the best designs I think I've ever seen on a big truck. It's a really handsome looking truck. And the one I've got, is the black. So it's got the black grille and, black tinted windows and, black sheet metal and, everything's black except for, some, polished, surfaces on the wheels, to give just a little bit of contrast. And it's, it really looks good. And this one also has the new split tailgate, which, opens up, hinges down like a standard tailgate. But it's also split about 70-30 horizontally. So you can open up the left side, which has about 70% of the width, open that up to the side. It's hinged on the side. Open up the right side, which is the other 30%. So it's hinged on the right side. And then you can close one side and leave one side open. So, if you've got to carry some long 2x4s, and you don't want to have the whole tailgate open, you can just have it, hanging out the back of one side. So, it's really handy in that respect. It's got a nice, pull down step, on the back of underneath the rear bumper, so you can get up into the truck, into the bed if you need to. This one doesn't have the Ram box, which is also, I think, a particularly useful, option, especially if you carry tools and stuff like that. The Ram boxes are lockable storage bins that, are on the top of the sides of the bed on either side. And, very handy for carrying tools in. The cabin in this thing, this one has the big 12-inch portrait display touchscreen, which, while it looks quite spectacular, especially in a truck, overall works okay. You can split it vertically and have, the top half can be like essentially the standard Uconnect interface, and then the bottom half would be, you can switch out different cards, and depending on what you need, you can have the climate controls, you can have seat controls. I think there's 3 or 4 other things you can choose in there. Personally, I would not go for this. I mean, it looks great, but it's not something I would choose. I mean, how I feel about touchscreens in general.
What's the alternative?
Well, you can get it with the standard 8.5-inch Uconnect touchscreen. So you still have the same interface on the top half, but then you get physical controls for the climate control, which I think are much better. So, for the fancy people, you can have the big screen, but I would opt for the standard screen. I think it's more functional by having the physical climate controls there. This thing does have lots of USB-C ports and USB-A ports, so you can plug in whatever devices you want. It's got a wireless charging pad in there, which, by the way, is labeled with the name Ram Charger in it. So bringing back a classic Dodge name. But
Cute.
Yeah.
Does it rust out? Does it have a 360 that has a leaky passenger side exhaust
I don't think
manifold?
so because it's a plastic surface, so I don't think it's going to rust on you.
It's not a Ram Charger.
That's true. You can't take the top off of it. So
Yeah.
I just want to clarify. Do you have the Laramie or the Laramie Longhorn?
it's just the Laramie, not the Longhorn.
Okay. Okay. I
So
wasn't sure.
this one is a mere $68,000.
What was that you were saying about the price of vehicles?
Exactly.
Wow.
And when you consider like this is you can't put a plow. I mean, you can, but they really don't recommend you put a plow on these.
No, not on the Laramie. I mean, you can get a work truck version. You can get a lower end version. That's well suited for plowing if you need that.
So why I will ask because I don't know. Why can't you plow with this?
Plows are heavy, and the front springs tend not to like it.
Okay.
Yeah, and this one has the 4-corner air spring suspension, so
Okay.
you can raise it up and lower it down, which is pretty cool.
Right.
On the highway, it automatically lowers down for reduced drag, and then you can raise it up when you need more ground clearance. But I don't think you're supposed to use a plow with the air springs. I think if you want to use a plow, you have to get the steel spring version.
Yeah.
Okay.
And FCA really, really wants you to buy the heavy duty truck if you're going to do anything other than commute.
Right. Well, and you know what? I'm glad that you brought up the split tailgate because I thought that was really, really cool. They showed that at Chicago, and I actually demonstrated it on TV for them.
So, that's a big,
Yes.
I was going to ask, in the land of fancy tailgates now, how does this compare to, the what is it, the GMC Pro tailgate or whatever? And everybody seems to have
prefer
one.
that one.
Oh, do you?
Yeah,
Well,
I mean the GMC tailgate definitely has more possible combinations and permutations. I think there's like 6 different ways you can configure it.
Right.
It's the GMC is definitely the Swiss Army knife of pickup truck tailgates.
Yeah, it's incredible.
But this thing looks a lot better, and it also rides and handles a lot better than any other truck on the road.
Well, so I'll tell you the reason that they had me do the little TV thing was because I had I'll have to look back at my notes. I had a Ram 1500. I don't remember which trim it was back in December, and the tailgate, the standard tailgate even today is on the Ram 1500 is just the fold down, and the only step up is the license plate, like the indent where the license plate is. Yes,
this one actually has a little step that you can pull down that's underneath the corner of the bumper.
Right, that's the split one. But the standard tailgate if you don't go for the split, there is no additional way to access the bed except through the license plate indent.
Oh, okay.
And the heavy duty version does not yet offer the split tailgate either. And so when I had it in December that didn't have the split, was not out yet. If I wanted to get into the bed, I had to go, the only way I could get into it, and even then it was really hard, was to go through the tailgate, the license plate indent. There's no other way. It was so archaic. It was shocking to me. So then when I saw it at the Chicago show that they did the split, it was much more user-friendly. And I said something about a smaller female, and they said, well, to be truthful, it's everybody needs these kinds of things because people are getting older. Also, they were finding a lot of feedback from their clientele saying, I'm not a kid anymore, and this thing is really hard.
Those are the people who can afford a $70,000 1500 pickup.
Exactly. So I didn't mean to hijack your conversation, Sam. So go on about it. But
you can the new generation Ram is available in 2 configurations only. You've got the quad cab, which is the shorter crew cab version, and then there's the crew cab, which is just the back seat in this thing is just enormous. It's like a limo back there. And the amount of legroom you have is just insane. But you can't actually get a standard cab version of this new generation Ram, because what they're actually doing is FCA is still selling what they call the Ram 1500 Classic, which is the old generation Ram, which you can get as a double cab or the standard cab. And the new one actually starts at like $33,000, I think, for the new generation Rams, and then 33,000. And then if you want something more affordable, especially as a work truck, if what you're looking for is a work truck, the Ram Classic is the one to go for, because you can get that starting at just 27,000, which is closer in price to the base prices of the GM and the Ford pickup trucks.
So I was told that they're still selling about a third of their sales are coming from the Classic.
Yeah, and in fact, there was just a report today that they're going to continue selling the Classic for at least another year, and maybe longer.
Wow.
Got to keep those lines running.
Yeah.
Also, but what it helps them do as well is keep the average transaction price of that newer truck higher, which is something they can brag about. And they still
you can't get a base level version of the new truck. You can get a tradesman trim level in the new truck, but only as a double cab, that starts at 33,000.
I have to admit, I didn't really have that much of a problem with the old truck.
Yeah, I mean, the old truck was still a damn good truck. It's the only full size truck with coil spring suspension front and rear, and definitely has better ride quality than anything else out there.
And it still had a better interior.
Yeah, and it's better looking.
It's gorgeous.
Yeah.
So
but this new one is definitely a winner. As long as you can afford it.
Yeah. But you know what? When I saw them in New York, when they unveiled the heavy duty version, they said, if you're pulling a $300,000 trailer, you don't want to have a $50,000 truck. You want a $90,000 truck, and that's who they're selling to, are people that are trailering even more expensive toys.
Seems exceptionally fiscally irresponsible to me, but what do I know? I guess I think it's true. Trucks are also, they're a status thing, right?
They are. I mean, if you're pulling up to, it's stereotypical, but if you're pulling up and you're hauling your horses to a rodeo or to to a show,
to dressage,
to dressage. I mean, you're not going to show up in a beater. You want to show up. You're, and especially if you're driving, you want something that's comfortable.
And it's funny. My wife and I went to the lake yesterday, and this lake that we go to in the summertime. It's on a farm north of town, and when you go in there, the farmer, his wife, they're checking people in as you come in. It's a private club basically on this little lake on a farm, and Betty, the wife, was there, and she always asked me about what I'm driving that week, and told her this is the new Ram 1500, and she's looking at it, giving it the once over, and she says, so how much is this thing? And I told her, and she said, yeah, definitely not a farm truck, huh? I said, well, this is for the chief, the head, the owner of the big ranch, not for just your average farmer.
Right. It's management drives.
Yes.
Yes. But this is the buyer that I've talked about before, where they're domestically oriented. If they won the lottery, they would buy the best pickup truck they can buy. They would not buy a Lexus. And these are the people, that's who they're talking to. That's actually what FCA does better than anybody, is talking to that wealthy, domestically oriented consumer.
And you know what? I think it's glorious. It's really nice to drive a really nice truck. They're very comfortable. They're luxurious.
It is fun.
They, yeah, no, they're not terribly efficient, but man, are they nice to just that and full-size SUVs. If you've got miles to cover, it's a great way to cover miles.
It is. It is. It absolutely is. I mean, when I had it, driving this thing around Greenwich, I was badass.
Yeah.
But it's a good looking truck. Like it's gorgeous. I felt like people were looking for my thoroughbreds behind me.
You should get some.
Exactly.
So I am curious though about the e-torque, because that's the one area where the Ram, the 5.7 Hemi, it's starting to show its age. It's not it's not as competitive in terms of power output as it once was, especially when you've got stuff like EcoBoost that it uses a smaller, more efficient way to actually put out more power with a torque curve that's better suited for pickups. So does the e-torque help that deficit, sort of smooth it out?
Oh, absolutely. The e-torque system, and what e-torque is a 48 volt mild hybrid system. It's a belted starter generator, so that, in place of your traditional alternator, there's a starter generator sitting there that has a wider belt on it. And, the belt has, a second idler pulley. So it can act both as an alternator, but also to do some regenerative braking and give you, more engine off time. When you come up to a stop, and the engine shuts off to save fuel, it can stay off, for several minutes at a time. Even 90-degree weather over the weekend, it, with the air conditioning on, it was not, it was staying off during the during an intersection, whereas a lot of other auto stop start systems would restart after a few seconds. And that's when you're sitting there with your foot on the brake, that's when you're most likely to feel any shuddering from the engine start. This one doesn't do that, because you've got so much more torque, and it's adding 130 foot-pounds of torque to the Hemi, which is, it's a pretty substantial amount of torque, and, also boosting the fuel economy by about 15% compared to the standard Hemi. So it's, it's a very capable system. And, it's bundled in with a few other things, but, it's about a $1,400 option. But if you're going to be spending this kind of money on a truck, you might as well spend that and get that extra torque on there. And, it gives this thing plenty of get up and go, when you step on it.
Yeah, well, that's good, because they need something to compete. And you're looking at Chrysler's engine lineup, and you're like, I'm not sure if they're going to turbocharge their Pentastar. It doesn't seem like something they're going to do.
No, I don't think so. At least not, in its current form. I think that they'll probably go a different direction if they do that at all, if they do anything like that.
Yeah. I like the Ram 1500. It's quite different from what I've been driving, which we're back to the small side of the scale. I got a 2019 Mazda Miata Grand Touring, which is just lovely. In terms of price, it's not quite as expensive. It's a whopping $33,000, which is on the high end, I think, for a Miata. Maybe
is that a regular soft top Miata or the RF?
Yeah, no, it's a soft top, which is great.
Oh, okay.
I love the RF because it's a little quieter, but it's also more of a Targa, so it's different. It's not like the old Miata retractable hardtop. It's the RF is a little different flavor of the Miata experience. And the soft top is just, it's the classic Miata, and it's so well thought out. It's you can drop that top with one hand at a stoplight. It just you pop the latch and it folds back, and you just push down on it, and it clicks in, and you're good to go. And if you need,
if it starts raining, you can just reach right over your shoulder and pull it right back up again.
Yeah. So that's great. Top down driving in it is, and we all know I'm not a convertible guy, but it is the best when the top is down. It's a great, fun experience. It's just, it's that classic roadster kind of thing. You know, the engine sounds great. It's smooth and has plenty of power. The ride is, they left it softer, or they left a little body roll in on purpose, so that I think part of it is a safety thing, so that you won't quite overdo it, but also I think it's to give you that sensation of speed without having you have to overdo it. So it's very, very pleasant to drive. It's fun to shift. This one's a manual. And you know, practice your heel toe. Everything is just really, really well thought out, and the Grand Touring is nicely equipped. It's comfortable. It's definitely not quiet. It's just one of the things I like about the RF better, is that my ears ring less when I get out of that car. You know, and it's such a stark contrast to everything else on the road. This thing, it's so tiny compared to everything else out there. You know, I park it in a spot, and it's like, oh, I can fit. Like, this is how cars used to be.
Yeah, and then when somebody goes to pull in and then they realize that you're in there, they swear.
Yeah.
Right, because it tucks in.
Right.
Who cares?
It does. I lost it in the parking lot today. I went to the grocery store and I was like, is it there? And it is. It's just, it's not really that long. I think it's probably 10 feet from tip to tail. It's not a long car.
I'm familiar with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All of those virtues of your first generation Miata, I think, are intact. And, you know, they didn't try to make it, you know, lower, longer, wider, more powerful, bigger, louder. They've kept with the same formula, and it's worked out really well. You know, it's a car that you can just drive it and enjoy it at any speed. And actually, the slower you go sometimes, the better. You know, like it'll do 80 or 90 on the highway, no problem, but it's not really what it's for. You know, it's more in its zone between like 20 and 45, not on the highway, on a surface road. So it's just, I'm going to be sad to see it go. It's really nicely done. This one is a very beautiful, like iridescent metallic red, and it has tan. It's either leatherette or leather. I don't have the Monroney in front of me, but it's all of those classic sports car virtues that you can't really get anywhere else. Everything has kind of moved on and changed. The only other car that's like it, sort of, is the Fiat, because the Fiat is a Miata.
It is,
but it's a lovely car.
Which engine do you have? Do you have the new turbo?
No, it's not.
Okay.
Not the turbo.
but it is one of the most authentic cars.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, that's
Yeah. It's funny, you know, when I bought my Miata a couple of years ago, you know, which is now almost 30 years old, and you know, I drove it back to back with a new one. You know, it's amazing how similar it remains. You know, and I mean, the new one is almost exactly the same size as the original.
It's light. It's lighter, or like, is it just a couple hundred pounds heavier? I forget which.
I think the Roadster, the soft top, is about the same weight actually. The RF is a little heavier, but you know, the Roadster is pretty close to the original. But you know, where the one thing that feels distinctly different is, you know, my car, you know, has a significantly lower belt line, and when you're driving it, it feels more delicate. You know, it feels like, you know, if you hit something, it's just going to wrap up. You know, whereas that new one feels, even though it's almost exactly the same weight, it feels so solid, but it also feels like you're more you know, the car is more, you're wrapped up around you. You feel ensconced in it because the belt line is higher in the new one. You know, when, you know, if I want to drive with my, you know, with my left arm, my left elbow up on the sill, you know, it's not, you know, in my car, it's almost perfect height, you know, and then in the new one, it's, you know, you don't get that. It's not as comfortable to do that.
Yeah, no, Sam, when you drove me to the airport a couple weeks ago, it was I was very conscious of being exposed sounds like a negative because it wasn't. But
No, you're right. I think that is the right word. You do feel more exposed in the old one.
right. I mean, and you're right. Like I felt like my shoulders were up and out of the car, which I have a very small torso, like a very short torso. And, it was a really funny sensation. It was fabulous. I loved it. But it's not a sensation that you get in cars today. And even in
Right.
the Miata, because I had the new one a couple of weeks ago too. So it's definitely a different sensation.
Well, and that's something I think you will universally notice with older cars where they did have lower belt lines, and that's one of the things that I like about cars from 20 25 years ago was that visibility was better. But part of the reason why we've gone to these higher belt lines is for side impact, but also because I think psychologically that thing you're talking about, Sam, where you feel more protected when you're cocooned in this thing, even though you're you're in a way you're less safe because you can't see out as clearly to avoid stuff. It does like that trick actually works even on a cynical auto journal. It's good. And I feel the same thing when I get in just about anything with the lower belt line now. It's just like I like that sensation. I remember it where you didn't have your arm like up above your ear. Your elbow was below your ears when you had your arm on
right.
the door sill versus like now where it's very clearly this weird sensation. You're not really supposed to have the window down. You want to keep it up. You want to stay cocooned in your little sensory tank, so that nothing bad can ever happen to you. But
You know what? If you don't want anything bad to happen to you, don't leave the house.
Correct. And then bad things will happen to you because you haven't left the house. But the philosophy that Mazda used was the Japanese phrase Jinba Itai, something like a horse and rider as one was the philosophy behind the way the Miata is supposed to behave. And I agree with that. It really does feel like a car that you can get to that point with it where you really you're communicating with each other in a way. I know it sounds fluffy, but it's one of those cars that it'll let you become a better driver. You can heel toe with it. You can find the apex. It's very trusty in terms of handling. I noticed that it's if you lift off the throttle in the middle of a turn, it's light enough that the weight transfer it's going to make it bite. You're going to have to change your line. Like those are things that it's going to teach you as you drive it.
But it's not going to bite you in the ass.
Right.
When it
No,
does
it's super
it's
benign.
not like an old 911 that's going to snap around. Everything just happens very progressively. I mean, you can, it's so easy to place it exactly where you want on the road.
Yeah, I think this is it's a hard car to get in trouble with because it's very benign. So yeah, I really like it. I like the changes they've made to the engine, where it feels definitely it's plenty powerful. The 2-liter Sky Active, and it revs out further than it used to, and you really you get something for that. Where in the past, like it's almost felt like that's been the mark of some other cars, like the Honda S2000 was like that thing would just rev and rev and rev, and that was where the joy in that car was. And some of that now has come to the Miata, where it has this, I think it was a 7,000 RPM power peak and the 7,500 RPM red line, that's pretty high. So it changes the experience a little bit, and the engine is smooth and pretty strong, and it's a fun all around package. There's nothing else like it on the road, and I'm glad that we still have it. So, it's a car that we recommend all the time, and these are the reasons why, because it's a great car. And if you kick it hard, It'll go sailing across the parking lot.
I mean, I know mine still puts a smile on my face every time I drive it.
Yeah, even I enjoyed it, and I hate everything. There were two other launches beyond the Q3 that we talked about. There was the Nissan Versa and the Subaru Outback. So which do we want to bite off first? What, you know what? Why don't we go with the Versa first? We'll go back to Nash Vegas.
Sounds good.
Because I'm really, really curious about how they incorporated hustle into their messaging. So we have to start there.
It was actually more that they incorporated fuel your. So they did.
Do you think they talk to each other like the Nissan and Audi people?
No, I don't know. I don't know. But so first, I think we should say that Sam and I both very much enjoyed the Versa.
Oh,
right.
And you know what? Let's tee this up before you guys actually recorded a segment.
Yes.
So let's cut that in here, and then we'll come back and we'll talk smack about all of the event and the car itself. So stand by.
Sam here with Rebecca, and we are in the heart of Nashville, Tennessee, sitting in a 2020 Nissan Versa. Versa SV, actually, which is the middle trim level. And we've just been spending the morning driving this thing around outside of Nashville. And this is Nissan's entry-level vehicle. What do you think about this?
You know, I think it's really, really good, actually. The interior is particularly nice. I think it's a modern, simple interpretation. There, are nice touches. There's nice materials that they've used. The dials feel really good. The screen, I think, looks great. There's some nice top stitching details. There's you can see a couple of cost saving areas. Some of the door panels are a little hard surface, but even there, they've tried to give it a nice feel. And overall, I think I'm really impressed with it.
Yeah, I mean, the center part of the dash, spans across the dash here and around the center display. On this particular SV trim level is, it's got a strip of, nice piece of contrasting leather. It's like a tan color against the dark plastic. The plastics, as you said, are, it's hard surfaces, because this is their low end car. This thing starts at $14,700 for the base S model with a manual transmission, and even this SV, which is pretty close to loaded, has just about every available option on it. It's just barely over $19,000, including the $900 destination fee. So, this is one of the cheapest. Let me rephrase that. This is one of the least expensive cars you can buy, new cars you can buy in America today.
Right.
And it really doesn't feel cheap.
It doesn't.
There's that that important distinction between being low cost and being cheap. The hard, like I said, the hard plastics, when you touch them, they're hard. They don't have any give to them, but they're really nicely textured. It looks high quality, and everything. The fit and finish is really good. Notably, they have not actually shown us the base model. The $14,700 model, but still, it's not going to be radically different from this one.
Right. I think that, the fact that this is, comfortably under 20,000, and as you say, that includes the $895 for destination handling, and you're getting a really nice vehicle, nicely equipped, really nice looking, and, as we experience, it drives really nicely, and it's so quiet on the road, and just a really pleasant experience overall.
Yeah, the engine in this one is a naturally aspirated 1.6 liter 4. It's paired with a CVT, which gets pretty decent fuel economy. I was seeing, I think, about 33 miles per gallon on the indicator, and I think it's EPA rated at 40 on the highway. It's only 122 horsepower. When you're going up, a fairly steep grade, it's working. You can hear the engine working.
Yeah, it's screaming a little.
But that's not terrible. The overall, like you said, the car is quiet. Wind noise is kept to a minimum, and when you're merging onto a highway, for example, it's got enough grunt, to safely merge you on. You're not going to be struggling to keep up with traffic. So,
and don't forget, we haven't had the radio on either.
That's true. Yeah.
So this is all without the radio on.
Yeah, and that's something we typically do when we're doing these drives is we leave the radio off, because we're talking about our impressions and listening for stuff. There's no shakes and rattles, no squeaks. It's seems really solidly put together. And I think for somebody that's looking for an affordable new car, with a warranty, I think for most people that are maybe looking to buy their first car, buying a used car is usually a far more affordable option. But if you want something new with a warranty, you're going to be hard pressed to do better than this thing.
I agree. I think that there's a lot of safety features on it. There's standard on this SV. We've got automatic emergency braking, rear automatic braking, lane departure warning, high beam assist, which basically means automatic high beams, rear view monitor. There's steering wheel controls on there, and then Apple CarPlay and Android Auto is standard. We also have the cruise control, adaptive cruise control, which we've had a couple of issues with, but again, just the fact that it's even on here is really, really impressive for just over 19,000 delivered.
Yeah, and it's also a fairly roomy car, especially up in the front seat here. We've got plenty of room. The back seat, one of the things they did with this new generation of Versa, and something we haven't mentioned, is the design. The design, the last generation Versa was, shall we say, a little awkward looking. It looked like it was too tall for, its too small tires.
Right.
It looked a little tippy, and it had too much. It looked like it had too much sheet metal, in the fenders over the wheels. This one is much better proportioned, much more attractive. It looks like a scaled down version of the new Altima and Maxima. It's got that same kind of design language, which looks really attractive, I think.
It does.
And so it's a little lower, it's wider, it's a little bit longer than the previous Versa. No hatchback this time, at least for now anyway. More than likely, I don't think we will see a hatchback version, because I think they're looking at the Kicks as really kind of the replacement for the Versa Note, which is based on the same platform, but it's a compact crossover. But I think that that they've done a lot right with this car. The back seat is got enough. I climbed in the back and had room. I had more than enough knee room and leg room in there, shoulder room, because it is lower than the old one. Headroom is less than it was before, but I could sit up straight. If I'm 5'11" and I have a fairly long torso, my hair was just barely brushing the headliner. If I stood up straight, and sat with good posture instead of my usual slouch. But I think most adults will have, be fine in the back seat.
But they did mention that they lowered the seat.
Yeah,
they lowered the H point on that
to
make up for the more slopey roof. And as you said, it just looks more planted. It's nice wide. Mm-hmm. There's a level of character to the exterior without being a caricature. So it's not this really overly expressive design, which some vehicles today seem to have, and it almost looks cartoonish. This has a nice, quiet elegance to it that
you wouldn't
really...
be referring to the Honda Civic, would you?
I did not say anything.
I'm certainly not complaining about the Civic because I have one in my garage.
But no, I think that they did a nice job. And again, it's a nice looking vehicle regardless of the price point. But then when you find out that it's less than 20,000, then it's really a nice looking vehicle. I think they did a great job on it. I like the fact that the knobs inside, it's very easy to use, it's very intuitive. There's a couple of things I would have loved to have seen them offer. I'd love to see auto HVAC, because that's just a pet peeve of mine, and that's just more of a personal thing. But at some point they have to cut off the costs, and so it's understandable. It does come in a manual also with the
only in the S model.
Only on the base
model, yeah.
On the base, and then I do wonder if there's a key, right? This is
so the base model has a standard key.
Does not have the push button start like this one does.
Yeah. So the SV and the SR get the push button start, get the CVT as standard equipment, and also get things like Android Auto and CarPlay. For that $14,700 price, you're not going to get those features,
right? But
if you're looking for a new car at that price point, you will have to make some sacrifices.
Yeah.
And the thing is the base car itself is so feels so fundamentally good for what it is. That I mean, certainly it's not going to be a competitor, with a BMW or other much more expensive cars. But at this price point, you can't beat this.
I agree. I think that, again, I'd love, to see a sunroof in here as an option, but they had to make some decisions like that, and it's fine. And even though one of the first slides they showed us today was on the sedan market, and but you have to think of these vehicles on a global basis as well, that this type of vehicle is perfect for the global market. And so, I think they'll sell an absolute ton of them. That's another reason why they kept the manual transmission. Somebody asked them, is it really even worth it? But they said on a global basis, it is worth it. And so they figured, let's throw, a couple to the States. I think they'll sell 2 or 3% maybe. They didn't give us any kind of indication, but they did say that there's some desire for a manual still in this market.
Yeah, and Nissan has been struggling a little bit of late. They their most recent financial results, their profit in the first half of the year dropped by 90, or maybe it was the second quarter, dropped by 90% compared to the prior year period. And they just in the last few days they made some announcements that they're going to be cutting 12,000 jobs, cutting about 10% of their model lineup between now and 2022 or 23. And so my guess is that, given that the sedan market is shrinking, I mean, it's still sizable, about 3 million vehicles a year in the U.S. Out of 17 million total, but it has been shrinking steadily for the last several years. And, so I would guess that part of the changes that we're going to see in the Nissan lineup going forward, we probably won't see a hatchback version of the Note directly, but like I said, the Kicks will probably be marketed towards those who would have wanted a hatchback in this size class. The Sentra, when it reaches the end of its current life cycle, is probably going to go away, I think, because I think this vehicle is close enough in size to the Sentra that it doesn't really make sense to have another vehicle in that gap between here and the Altima.
Do you think there's more name recognition with the Sentra than the Versa, though?
There might be.
I would wonder about that, just in terms of getting on a consideration list for shoppers.
That's possible, but I think my guess is that if shoppers come into a Nissan dealer and see this car and see it next to a Sentra, and they're probably going to say, what, that car is so much more within my budget,
right, and
offers so much for what I can afford to pay every month, that it makes sense for me to choose that one. And my guess is that over the next 12 months, we'll probably see a significant decline in Sentra sales and a significant increase in Versa sales.
So speaking of sales, I have to comment on their advertising motto.
Yeah.
Fuel your go. Not to be confused with enjoy the go from that toilet paper company.
Yeah.
Fuel your go. I mean, I'm sorry, but right away I thought I have to go to the bathroom. Like, it's just, I'm going to say this because I've already told some people at Nissan this. I don't understand that. I get the concept of it, but you got to come up with a better tagline than that. I don't know. So, they're going after, they've divided these up into first-time buyers, the wanderlusters, the self-strivers, and the full house families. And, I appreciate what they're trying to do, but I just, fuel your go?
No.
Know.
That one
no go.
Completely lost on me. And the names they come up with, some of these segments, some of these demographic segments, just make me cringe sometimes.
I know. Well, so
I understand what they're trying to do. They're trying to figure out who is their customer, trying to understand what that customer is looking for in a car, what they need in a car, and trying to create a product that's going to appeal to those customers at a price point that they can manage. And I think for that, they've succeeded. I think for those of us outside of the companies, and having been on the inside in a past life, hearing these presentations from the marketing people, some of these names that they come up with to describe these different demographic groups is pretty hysterical. But what can you say?
I know. I just had to bring that up.
Yeah.
The car itself, I think, is fantastic. I think they did a really nice job. I love how much technology they've packed into it. And I say, like, almost regardless of the price point, it's impressive. And then when you hear what value it is, I think they've done a really nice job. They have 3 USB ports, one that actually supports the Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, and then 2 more that are for charging. So if you've got multiple people in the vehicle with you, you can charge your phones without interfering with the interface, which I think is really cool and thoughtful. And that's the thing, is that there's a lot of nice little thoughtful touches in here. There's a couple of cup holders. There's not tremendous, but there's some nice cubby holes of storage, and
we've got this little mystery cubby over here on the left-hand side of the dash that we were trying to figure out what you could actually store in there.
But it's there. I don't think you'd fit your phone.
My phone won't fit in there. It's a little bit too wide.
Yeah, it's about the depth of my fingers, which is maybe 2.5, 3 inches. So it's kind of a weird little cubby hole. We're not sure what that is for, but again, there's no wireless charging. There's a few things that are missing, but at the same time, there's some nice surprises as well. And so, the sun visors are really large, and they actually have an extension to help with blocking the sun. And so they've done some nice features, again, on a vehicle that they could have easily skimped on things, but I think they did a really good job.
You can find other vehicles in this price range, like the Mitsubishi Mirage, that do not feel this good,
right,
and certainly don't drive as good as
certainly don't drive as well as this one does, for sure. Yeah. So no, I think it's if you're, as you said, Sam, I think if you're in the market, if you're looking at spending $20,000 and below, I think this is definitely something that should be on your list. It's a perfect alternative to a used car, because you're going to get that warranty. You're going to get some of the latest technology. You're going to get Apple CarPlay, Android Auto on that upper trim level, and I think it's definitely worth considering.
Absolutely,
it's really good.
Yeah. All right, back to the rest of the show.
Awesome.
On the heels of that, now we can dish. So you like the Versa, but also their messaging is not quite as likable.
Well, as we just mentioned in that piece, the message, fuel your go. I'm sorry, but
perfect.
I immediately had to go to the bathroom, and as I said in the piece,
she's not kidding.
I told Nissan this already, so I feel comfortable saying this. But then the funny thing was, then when I got home and I saw the card from Audi saying "Fuel your hustle," I'm like, well, at least that doesn't make me go to the bathroom.
Is this like the car lunch equivalent of like running the water? Or no, it's just like fuel.
I think so. Yes,
fuel your go. That just sounds like a combo of like protein powder and laxative. Like it just
right. I'm at an absolute loss. I'm not gonna lie. I don't understand that at all. And I'd love to hear on Twitter from our listeners what their take is on those things. I really would, because obviously, I had a very specific reaction to
clearly. I mean, that's not good. And I hate everything, and I'm a critic, but yeah.
And you work in advertising.
Yeah, well, and that helps me additionally hate everything. Because like I'm constantly rewriting copy, so I get it. Like I'm not necessarily the best, most reliable evaluator of it, because I'm gonna have those sort of. I'm gonna want to make it my own. But yeah, that's it. But anyway, I hope that's not their. I hope that's just their sort of media launch thing. And
no, that's their tagline for their marketing campaign for the Versa.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, and my first thought was "Enjoy the Go" from Charmin.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And see, that's one of the things that you really like. They're not associated. industries really, but like you have to do that free association thing. Like I've killed stuff because uh, you do that person's like unvarnished response to it, and if you get too many of those, you've got a problem, and you know that it's going to get conflated with that, and like that's not going to help your brand.
Right.
Especially like, so my opinion of the old Versa was that it sort of belongs there, but no, it looks, so the new Versa, I'm curious to see what your impressions of it are, because like looking at pictures and reading the press release, like it looks like it's a much better car. It certainly looks a lot better. And the old Versa's problem was that it was like the modern,
Homely.
yeah, well, it was old and terrible, and the modern day equivalent of a Studebaker Scotsman, which is like the most stripped out car you could buy.
But no, I think like we said in the piece, that this is an excellent vehicle for I think it's a very good vehicle in general, and especially for the price point. 17,000, 19,000 fully loaded. That's really competitive. I mean, look at what we've been talking about, is how incredibly expensive these vehicles are. This is a really competitively priced vehicle with very few compromises. So kudos on Nissan for that. I just am not feeling the, well, that's a bad way. I don't like that tagline. I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's an excellent, affordable car. And even if you take away the affordability part of it, I think it's really well done. It looks good. It's very well executed. Clearly, if you put this thing up against something like the Q3, the level of materials and everything is not going to be in the same ballpark, but it costs a third as much.
Well, and it's not supposed to be. Exactly.
Right. I think, for somebody that's looking for, an affordable new car with a warranty and everything, you're going to be hard pressed to do much better than this one.
Yeah, well, that was sort of the Versa's niche. The first generation Versa, because this is the third generation now. So the first generation Versa, they had the sedan and the hatch. They weren't that different. The hatch was the one that we all loved. And so that's the one that they killed when they went to the second generation. So we only got a sedan.
But then they brought out the Versa Note.
The Versa Note. But the Note is now gone, right? That's all done.
Yes. And I think, while, Nissan won't specifically say this, I think, effectively the Versa Note has been replaced by the Kicks.
That makes sense. Yeah, I was going to say it's the Rogue Sport, but I think that's probably
no, it's really the Kicks that is the replacement, and the Kicks, is on the same platform as the Versa, so it's got the same powertrain, same wheelbase, all the same hardware underneath. It's got beam axle with drum brakes on the rear, basic strut suspension up front, same 1.6 liter, 122 horsepower engine, CVT. So mechanically it's the same car. It is basically a Versa hatchback.
Yeah.
That's slightly taller, ever so slightly taller.
And that's fine, because it sells. Everybody actually really likes the Kicks, and
right. And the Kicks, same thing, among subcompact crossovers, it is far and away the best value out there right now. I think the new Hyundai Venue, when that arrives later this fall, is probably going to be a serious competitor to that. But right now, the Versa is easily $2,000 to $3,000 cheaper than anything else in its segment.
I think they've been really smart. Like you just went through the running gear, right? The beam axle with drum brakes and simple struts and the 1.6 liter engine. Like none of that is going to light anybody's hair on fire. But what's really good about that is the same thing that's really good about the sort of the way that Toyota keeps the Corolla like that too. It's long wearing stuff. There's not much to go wrong with a beam axle. You replace the shocks every, I don't know, whenever they wear out, and you're pretty much good to go. That 1.6 is not a brand new engine. They've figured it out. They've worked out the bugs. The biggest issue is the Xtronic CVT that they've also figured out at this point. Are they still touting its rear seat? That's because I think the current one, the claim to fame is that it has more rear seat legroom than an E-Class Mercedes. That was what they kept saying.
They didn't tout that. Nominally, the new Versa has, I think, the same passenger volume as the old one.
Okay,
but it's been redistributed because it's lower, and it's a couple inches longer, but the wheelbase is the same, but it is also wider. So you've got more shoulder room in this one.
Yep.
Sitting in the back seat, I had the front seat, set where I would have it. I'm 5'11". I got in the back. I had plenty of leg room. But if I sit up straight, and don't slouch like I usually do, my head was just brushing the headliner at the back. But I have a fairly long torso proportion. So, I think, a typical 6 foot, 6'1", maybe even a 6'2" person, they would probably be fine in there. And, even if you just have to slouch a little bit, you've still got plenty of headroom back there. So, I think it's definitely usable by 4 adults. Of course, with 4 adults in there, that engine's going to be working a bit harder, especially if you're going uphill. But, and you're not going to be winning any autocrosses against a Miata in this thing. But that's not the way the customer of this car is going to be using it. They're going to be using it as a basic commuter to get to work and get to school. It's a good, if you're going to buy a car for, if you must buy a new car for your 16-year-old new driver, something like this is a good option.
Well, it's going to have all the safety gear. So
yeah, it does. You've got things like blind spot warning and forward collision alert and automatic emergency braking and also rear automatic emergency braking. So, when the rear backup camera detects something behind you, it will hit the brakes. And actually, that reminds me of something, when I was out photographing the Ram the other day. It also has rear automatic braking. And I was shooting it in some tall grass. And when I was trying to back out, to get back onto the road, it kept slamming on the brakes as I was backing up because it was detecting the tall grass around the back of the truck.
That's funny. One thing also with the Versa is that the back seats actually all fold down. It doesn't become a hatchback, so you can fit long items in there, but it does increase the utility of the sedan.
And the trunk,
that's
the trunk
really
is pretty
nice.
big in this thing
The
too.
trunk
It's
is
15
big.
cubic feet.
Yeah, the trunk is a good size. So I think they've done a really, really nice job with this and provided a good amount of functionality in even if it's a sedan.
Well, it's probably the car in Nissan's lineup that needed the love the most. Given Nissan's recently announced troubles where they're like 90% profit as they're off profit by like 90%. I'm not sure what's going on there, why their profit took such a large hit, but
because their CEO's in jail.
Well, I mean,
former CEO.
Somebody's
Former
running the
CEO.
company, right? Like the light.
Sakawa is.
They're keeping the lights on. So I'm confused by that, but it seems by all accounts like a good car, and it's weird. Most of the time with us car riders, we really like to drive the fancy stuff, or the Corvette. Like, I really would like to drive that, but I'd also really like to drive the Versa, and I'd like to drive the Versa S, like the base model. I want to see what that's like. Because they
didn't offer that for us,
huh?
That was not available to us.
No, but you know what? I don't think it would be that radically different from the others. Like even the Versa S, has those safety features I talked about.
Yeah.
The one we drove also had adaptive cruise control, but the Versa S, it has the 7-inch touchscreen display. It doesn't have Android Auto and CarPlay support, but it does have Bluetooth. So it's got, it's still got a lot of features in there.
Yeah. And like you say, for a new driver or just somebody who wants an affordable car that's a new car that's not being used, and there are reasons for doing that, it's another solid choice. And with the demise of sedans from everybody else, it's one of the few you can still buy.
Right. And, you were talking about, Nissan's 90% drop in profits. They announced last week that they're going to be cutting a whole bunch of models from their lineup in the next several years. And my guess is that based on the improvements on this Versa, I wouldn't be surprised if the Sentra is one of the cars that drops out of Nissan's lineup. And as well as, probably the Maxima, when it reaches the end of its current life cycle.
Well, yeah, those are cars that have kind of tiled into the corner, right? They don't really have anywhere to go.
Right.
The Versa has grown now, like you said, it's lower, longer, wider. Like it's Sentra-sized. So why do you want the Sentra anymore? Yeah, I guess we'll see with what happens.
The Sentra is still slightly bigger than this one, but not by a whole lot.
Yeah, the overlap is kind of it's really tight, right? Like you're going to want to go from Versa to Altima. So that's, I guess, does Sentra fill in the gap right now in terms of pricing between the top level Versa and the entry level Altima?
Yes, yeah. I do believe it does.
So they're going to have to figure that out. Like, do we kill the Sentra and make a cheaper Altima or a more expensive Versa? On to the next launch, the 2020 Subaru Outback. So now this is the 6th time around, and they all look the same.
They do. Well, they actually just sold their 2 millionth Subaru Outback. Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. And that's before the 6th generation hits the streets. So it's impressive. Yeah. This is actually my first Subaru launch ever.
Oh, really?
So I was very excited to spend some time in it and just see, how they did their media launches and stuff. And it was great. They did a really, really nice job. They had us out to a beautiful location in northern California. We were quite a ways away. We had to go on a charter plane up to this spot, but it was really stunningly beautiful in Fort Bragg, California.
Okay.
Not to be confused with the other Fort Bragg, but it was pretty cool. Yeah, it was a great place. So the Subaru, as you say, I mean, it does look very similar to the other ones. That's typically understated, and I like the kind of rough and ready cladding that they do on them. These are, it's sort of like the Miata. These are incredibly authentic vehicles. They do not do anything too crazy or flashy. They stay in their swim lane. They know what their clientele wants. It has really nice features. Nothing too flashy. They are keeping up with technology. Android Auto and Apple CarPlay are both supported. There's the hands-free power liftgate is offered. The Onyx Edition XT, which we spent the afternoon driving, actually has water repellent upholstery in it, which I love. I think that that's what this client wants. This buyer wants that.
That's great. They're very dog-friendly brand and very dog-friendly cars. And one of the things that I do is when the dog gets in, even if it's just like, morning dew on the grass, or if it's raining, like he's got wet feet. He's leaving big dog prints all over everything inside. So if it's water repellent, that's appealing. Yeah. I like that.
Well, and the other thing I liked about this too, this Onyx Edition, it was actually the mid-level trim. So it wasn't the most expensive. So this is the base price is this is the 2020 Subaru Outback. The base price is $26,645, and then the one that I tested, the Onyx Edition XT, it was at about $34,895. May have had a couple of smaller of options on it, but 2.4 liter 4-cylinder turbocharged Boxer engine, CVT transmission, which was pretty good. A little whiny at times, but not too bad. All-wheel drive transmission. I actually had a terrible slog of a climb up this. We went to one of those redwoods that you can drive through.
Yeah.
You know, like you can take it. And
Yeah, I saw a bunch of pictures of that.
yeah,
I think
right.
Harvey Briggs posted some photos of that.
Yes. So the entire like 35, 40 miles up that hill there was a minivan and then a motorcycle. And the motorcycle clearly was on vacation. The minivan must have taken the year off because it was like 30 to 35 miles up the whole way, and it was a slog. So that was unfortunate. And then on the way back down, when my driving partner Jeff was driving, everybody pulled over for him. I was like, what the heck? What is going on here? So, oh my gosh, right? So I didn't, there was parts of it that I didn't get a chance to really test out as much as I would have liked to. However, we did go significantly off-road and do some pretty good off-roading in it. It has this dual function X mode with hill descent, and the X mode is accessible just by a push of a button, which I always like, because I remember like on the Honda Passport, you have to toggle through some menus, and you don't want to do that.
No,
like you're
like when you need it, you need it.
Right, yeah. You need it. So
that's actually one of the nice things about the Ram.
Yes.
Right around it's got a rotary shifter. And clustered around that shifter are the various 4-wheel drive mode buttons. So they're right there.
Love that.
So X mode is what is that? Does it lock it like 50-50?
Right. Yeah. So that then gives you the ability to go more off road. We did a very small amount of water fording, and this thing did a really, really good job going on pretty rough trails. I mean, these were not particularly well groomed. So the X mode, it works with the standard on all Subarus, the symmetrical all-wheel drive system. It just gives you better traction, basically. I won't pretend to be an engineer, but it was definitely necessary in some of the things that we had to do. And some of the off-roading that we had to do. And then when we were back on the road, then it was just really, really well behaved. And, they just do a nice job of that, of providing technology off-road that probably more than most people would use, but maybe not a Subaru owner. They often do some pretty vigorous off-roading.
I mean, I did see a picture of like fording a stream. That seems a little bit much, although it's cool that it'll do it.
How deep can you go on a Subaru?
I don't think it was very deep. It was measured in inches as opposed to feet, like we did in the Jeep. Like you and I, like Sam, like you and I did in the Jeep.
Yeah, like the Wrangler can handle, I think, 30 inches.
Yeah, that was different. This is not that. But I will say that like the hill descent, it worked really, really well. And it actually gave that feeling of sort of a Jeep-like sure-footed feel to it. So, I think they've done a really nice job with providing this vehicle. It's got the underplate. We did break one of them. It wasn't my fault. But we hit really hard and basically broke one of the brackets as opposed to the bumper itself. It was more the bracket, and it was just the way that we hit. So, you do have to be careful, obviously. But the ground clearance is pretty high. It's over 8 inches of ground clearance as well. And again, the thing is that it was not a lot of, you're not compromising a lot on the road because of this more off-road capability.
Well, this is the same platform as the Ascent, right?
I believe so. Yes, I believe it's the same platform. It uses the same engine as well. Well, I should say it's available. So the 2.4 liter turbocharged is available in the Ascent, and then you can also get a 2.5 liter normally aspirated engine. So I liked the 2.4 liter turbocharged.
Yeah, I think the last Ascent I drove had that engine, and I was really impressed with it. I was also impressed with the solid structure. So I'm assuming that that feeling carries over. If it's the same basic platform, it must feel really good.
It does. It does. It feels very, very, very solid. As I said, this was the first time that I'd spent any time in a Subaru. And so, I was coming in with a very fresh, kind of open-minded feel. And I was left really impressed. It's just, it's just a good all around car. It's one, they obviously their target market very much is academia, nursing profession. I mean, they know their target market, really, really well. And again, the price points, the most, so the base, as I said, is 26,645. That's for the Outback 2.5 liter engine. And then they've got, it goes up to the Outback Touring XT, which has the 2.4 liter turbo. So the base, but the base, even that, when we think about some of the safety features, it still has eyesight. It still has the Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. It still has auto stop start, rear view camera. It has some nice features to it. And then the walk up, as I mentioned, that the Onyx special edition, that's just under 35,000, and then you can go up to 39. So you can get a lot of car, and you've got a lot of different options in terms of to match your budget and what you want out of it. So, I think they did a really good job with it. I was really happy with it.
It definitely would. You'd be able to fit in Greenwich with one.
Yeah, exactly. So that dual X mode, I should mention also, it has the sand mud setting as well. So you can adjust that again through the toggling, through the knob rather, fairly easily. You're able to adjust that, which on the fly, I really like that a lot.
Yeah, it seems like, well, Subaru really knows their market. They know who buys their cars, and they know why people buy their cars. I'm impressed that with that new turbo engine, you can now tow 3,500 pounds with it. That's pretty good. With the 2.5 liter, it's a lot of space, it's a lot of car, but it also gets 33 miles to the gallon on the highway. So that's also pretty good. But I think the thing the couple things that you're always going to get with Subaru, and we were talking about this a little bit before we started, was you're going to get the all-wheel drive, but also you're going to get the safety, right? With the eyesight, with all of that driver assist technology, adaptive cruise and lane centering. It's either standard or available. They really, eyesight's standard on all trims now.
Right, it is, exactly. And then you can get enhanced versions of it as well. They also have the Starlink telematics, which is their Safety Plus system. And, they have the concierge, right? They have advanced adaptive cruise control. And, they've done a nice job, something called driver focus, which is their distraction mitigation system. And so this is where, they have facial recognition technology, and this helps improve whether you need to take a break or not. It follows your eye, detects the eye opening, the direction, and the duration in the vehicle. So again, very, very advanced features. Some of the other things they do is this, the driver status detection, which is distraction, which is audible and visual warning, and the dozing, which is another audible and visible warning. And so it kind of differentiates between what you're doing and how you're behaving behind the wheel. So, I like the fact that they've stayed authentic to who they are, but they've modernized the vehicle as well, and really kept up with stuff. So they did a really, it's a really, really nice job overall. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it looks like it looks like it does all the things it's supposed to do. How was the multimedia system? Did you try that? The new 11.6 inch?
Yeah, so we had so the base model gets, I think it's just over 8 inches, and then the big one, it's huge. I mean, it's 7-inch for the base, the Subaru Starlink Dual 7-inch multimedia, and then it goes up to 11.6 inch in the mid and the high trim, and then they add, the highest trim has TomTom navigation, but we mostly used Waze, and it's nice to have that option. But I thought it was easy. I've had you know me with multimedia. If I can break it, I will. But this one, actually was really pretty well behaved overall. We at one point we were running a little bit late, and so we wanted to just head back, and it was very easy to program and to put that in. So, and again, we were in pretty remote locations, but we didn't have any problems with directions, with getting to where we wanted to go.
So, do you think that like this Outback is the car that way back when they launched it? Who was the actor? It was Crocodile Dundee, Paul
Hogan.
Yeah, Paul Hogan. So it was kind of like I remember when they launched it in the late 90s, and it was just like okay, but it was also immediately very popular. And I think it's maintained that thing, but it really, I think it introduced all-wheel drive as a feature, and now that's everywhere. Like
it is. It's incredible. I mean, they made the decision, let me just glance through my notes real quick because they reference that they made that decision to go all-wheel drive. And, one of the things that they did so well, their timing of it was brilliant because safety and capability are two key core values of the baby boomer generation. They were the ones that really were they were the helicopter parents, right? and Subaru,
my experience of boomer parents was that they were helicopters for themselves.
Well,
they were
the
Narcissus parents.
But they brought us the baby on board sticker.
That's true.
Right? So, I've reproduced, therefore you need to drive better.
I have value. Yeah.
Right. But so 1994 was when the first model year was when the first generation came out. And then they added the cladding in the second generation.
Yeah, well, it was paint in the first generation, right? It was like two-tone paint.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, exactly, yes. But what they really did was in that, in the fourth generation, which was model year 2010, that's when they went from selling like in the low twos, 200,000 unit a year to 450,000 units in the fourth generation.
Well, that's really interesting. That's the generation where it all of a sudden went from a legacy wagon to a less high SUV. Like it would just,
yes,
that generation got a lot bigger.
Yep, it did. Well, that was the thing. So they increased the cabin and cargo space. They had retractable crossbars, and they upgraded the cladding. And those were some of the key things that they did. And then they also started introducing, 2015 is when they introduced EyeSight. But so the fifth generation, over 700,000 units sold in that generation. I mean, it's incredible. And that's, more off-road capability with the X mode, more cabin space, more refinement, more safety. And as I said, at the beginning, they've now sold 2 million units. And so they continue to add refinement. They continue, they continue to add features, but with that design restraint that their clientele desires from them and expects from them. And I love that about them. They're so true to themselves. It's amazing.
Yeah, well, Subaru continues to grow, very, very deliberately. Their sales are amazing.
Their sales are phenomenal. So in 2016-17, in that time frame, so they were number 4 in their midsize SUV segment behind Explorer, Grand Cherokee, and Toyota Highlander.
That's not bad company.
Right?
I'll take that.
They significantly outsell the Ford Edge. Like that, I mean, these are names that it's like, that's impressive. Just thinking about even their dealer body, and the coverage that they have. I mean, I think, Dan, you and I know that this was a New England car.
Oh, yeah.
Like, you only saw them in New England.
It was the official car of Vermont.
It still is.
Exactly.
So, it's funny, like I was going to comment. So here, there's 3 tiers of cars like this. Like this niche there's 3 tiers. There's the Outback tier. There's the Volvo tier, with the cross countries or the XCs, sure, whatever. And then there's the Mercedes tier with the E series 4MATICs. And each one is more expensive than the previous, but it's sort of the same kind of formula, right? It has sure-footedness, a certain amount of quality and safety and consistency over generations. Like, what you're going to get. And Subaru has eaten the bottom end of the Volvo market. Volvo has had to push upscale because, the days of buying the entry-level Volvo that is expensive but not luxurious are gone.
Right.
And that's because Subaru's there. You can buy a Subaru that is going to drive solid. It's going to have all that driver assistance and safety gear, and it's going to cost, like we see here, it's going to get into the high 30s, and then that's it. That's not bad.
Well, and their demographics are so classic. It's number one is their occupations. Number one is education. Number two is healthcare. Number three is technology. But their household income, I was surprised by this. It's only $75,000 to $99,000, which I thought was really was lower than I was expecting, especially because 32% of their buyers have a graduate level education or higher. Maybe that's reflected in the number one occupation of education. But, to them, these are people that have to get to work. Like when you think about, teachers and healthcare, they have to get to work. And so that's where the all-wheel drive comes in to say, it doesn't matter what's going on. I mean, yes, of course you have, snow days and such, but, these are people that say, other people are relying on me and to get there. And there's also that little, when you think about those vehicles you've described, there's a little bit of a nonconformist there, a little bit of their version of a rebellion.
Right. Let's be rebellious like everyone else.
Yeah.
But no, I think you're right. You're right. There's a that kind of thing is like it's sort of what had people in Saabs too.
Exactly.
I'm a little quirky.
Yes. Well, I mean, I would say that the demise of Saab has certainly added to the Subaru's appeal as well. And then the other thing too that I thought was interesting was they're 52% male, 48, assuming 48%
really
female if you go binary. But I thought that again was very interesting as well.
That's almost backwards from what I would have assumed.
Oh, I think I don't know. I thought it was kind of appropriate for thinking again about the people that buy them, the education and healthcare. And technology as well. But yeah, so that's Subaru. That's the Outback.
All right. I think that's the podcast.
I agree.
It's like you two have prattled on long enough about these Subarus.
Exactly.
All right. Well, that does it then for episode 119, and we'll catch everybody next time. Thanks for listening.
Thank you.
At Arizona State University, we're bringing world-class education from our globally acclaimed faculty to you. Ranked number one in innovation for 10 consecutive years and number two among public universities for employability, ASU isn't just ahead of the curve, it's creating new paths to success. Earn your degree from the nation's most innovative university. Online, that's a degree better. Explore more than 300 undergraduate, graduate, and certificate programs at asuonline.asu.edu.